Hello everyone, my name is Aishna. I am the assistant editor at CA Club India, and today we are in conversation with CACS Anuj Khandelwal, who will be sharing some insights on how aspiring CACS and CMA students can make a career in investment banking and private equity. So, talking about his background, Anuj has over 10 years of progressive experience in private equity, investment banking, corporate finance, and auditing. He's been working out of cities and countries across the globe. He's currently working with Affirma Capital, which is a spin off of Standard Chartered Bank's emerging private equity business. Anuj has a hands-on ground level experience in sourcing deals, managing portfolio companies, dealing process management, pitching to internal investment committee, term sheet negotiations, due diligence, and deal documents. He is also one of the youngest visiting faculty at ICA. Welcome to CCI Talk, Anuj. We are very happy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Aishna. It's my pleasure to be here on the platform. I'm happy to contribute in whatever way I can.
So, Anuj, one of the most important phases of the CA profession is the 3-year articleship period that students have to undergo. Can you throw some light on how articleship period helped you with your journey?
Sure. So, I would say that articleship period is the only portion in any professional degrees that I see around, be it MBA, be it CMA, be it any other degree, where at the age of 19 to 21, 22, you get a hands-on experience, right? And that's like really core to working in a corporate life later on. So articleship, if you ask me, if you do it really well, it actually adds a lot of value to you. So, just to give you like a couple of skill sets that I've learned over the period of time while going through my articleship. So I was actually doing my 3 years tenure with KPMG. So first, it gives you a client front-facing experience. So unfortunately or fortunately, you would see that people don't like these experience because here you have to deal with the finance team directly with CFOs and other team members. Here, as an article, a 19-year-old a kid right outside coming out of the high school actually gets direct exposure into that whole the wrestling space of finance team where he can just interact with a lot of students, a lot of professionals. Second, in articleship days, at least I was quite lucky that I really got, those mentor kind of guys who wear that mentor hat, who advises you actually onto your academic path to achieve your CA degree faster, plus will give you professional insight in terms of how things actually happen. Third is, over, spending 10 years of my corporate journey across different, areas, what I've realized is that that's the most intimate level of interaction of a professional with the financial statements. I mean, I haven't done a vouching since I have, cleared my CA, but I think those experience of, scanning through those documents, scanning through those challans, scanning through those, the invoices, memos and other things have actually given me a lot of confidence now, in terms of diligence process, in terms of everything. You can easily gauge what a finance guy or the finance team or the CFO is trying to articulate essentially. So in a deal process, what happens is you have to understand the challenges of each, deal team members. When there's a chance for CFO to present his cases, people typically underappreciate the issues that he's undergoing. So if you have come from that background where you worked, those countless nights for closing of financial books with CFO and the finance team, you would try and appreciate his concern so that a CFO and his whole team get a good representation in the entire decorum. So I would say that it is super critical, and it has really helped me to actually fasten up, my journey towards clearing the CA. It is certainly, and I hear a lot of, I get a lot of calls of students saying that, sir, can I please skip my articleship, focus on my education, just focus on my coachings, clear my CA in first attempt. To be really honest with you, I don't have the, facts back of my hat, but just to, give you a message, people who typically invest more time in actual ground level work have a high probability of clearing CA in the first attempt. So that's the first myth that I really want to break at this point in time. So I mean, just concluding this particular thought, it's a fantastic journey, it's a fantastic experience. You get a super long mileage in your professional career, Although you would start cribbing that, hey, look, I spoiled my college life, spoiled my all of this. But I think the real juice that you start seeing out of these efforts that you have paid, the countless nights that you have spent, would be after, you have a couple of years of experience. Yeah.
Right. So you've made a very interesting point that normally in professions, a student's professional journey starts after, the student has cleared graduation or post-graduation, mainly after studies. But in this course, I believe it's a benefit that students are getting hands-on experience at the age of 19. So how exactly did you make a switch from audit to investment banking and private equity, considering in the articleship period, most of us just focus on audit?
Sure, sure. So in fact, it looks like a very linear path. It looks like very well crafted strategy that I have used. That I had something in my mind that when I'll do CA, I'll be done with audit. Then I'll move to corporate finance, to investment banking, to private equity. Unfortunately, it wasn't any strategy in my mind. I was normal. I was a sportsman in my school days. I was a national level football player. I was not at all a commerce guy. I chose commerce not because I had love for CA, to be really honest and frank. I chose CA because if I would have taken sciences, I would have been not been able to get time to play sports. If I would have taken arts, I've been outcasted from the society, to be really honest. So I took commerce as a midstream. Now, when I joined commerce, when I developed my interest towards CA, so that's where I went into audit. That gave me a good exposure. But after spending 3 years, I didn't get the every individual has a different aspiration and a different kind of value add that they can make to the society. So for me personally, I was not contributing much to the audit field. I wanted to grow further. So as a general protocol for me, I would always speak to people who are 10 times more smarter than me. I reached out to a lot of folks. I reached out to a lot of seniors. I cracked a lot of cold call invites on LinkedIn. There were a lot of good guys who were able to help me out. I spoke to them. They guided me that, if you work in the management consulting and corporate finance or maybe investment banking, that might give you a slightly more, a bigger picture in the overall scheme of things.
Right.
So that's where, I made an internal move within KPMG. Within KPMG, I worked in the corporate finance department very briefly, where I learned about how to make a financial model. Because when you are in audit, you really get to used to of hanging around with Excels, Microsoft, PowerPoint, and some of these softwares. But the two levels up, you have those complex financial models which capture the history of a company for last 5 years. Then you have history, and then you have the projections for next 5 years. Then you have the commercial sense building into the financial model, that how a company would move over the next 5 years, and how it is benchmarked against the competitors. So these kind of thinking, obviously, a audit guy would kind of shake up really hard. I mean, boss, what is happening? Because this is what is something that it's out of his scope. So in corporate finance, I got to learn about these things. I got to understand about if I'm evaluating a company in auto component sector, or if I'm evaluating something in FMCG sector like a Nestle, then I need to know that how HUL is performing on a certain financial metric, how Dabur is doing on a particular financial metric, so that at least I have a benchmark. So it's like a report card that you prepare and you see that where your company stacks up. So these kind of thinking, some of the valuation concept you would have studied in your FM, but those concepts getting actually applied, those kind of discussions happening with the CFOs and the CEOs. So you actually learn those principles. And then again, at the same time, this was about 2015 when I decided to move on to investment banking. So investment banking, for in the interest of everybody, is actually divided into two components, or other, you can say 4 components. One is you have M&A and private equity advisory, where the investment bankers actually help companies either to acquire or to merge with the bigger ones, or they help the private equity investors to invest in some of these companies. Second is basically the equity capital markets division, which typically helps your company if it's of a reasonable size and scale and meets a certain threshold. So it would actually go for listing like an IPO. Once you're already listed on a stock exchange for a couple of years and you want additional capital, then you go for rights issues, then you go for QIPs. So these are also called merchant bankers, but comes under the umbrella of investment banking. Now, the third one is basically your institutional sales and research. So this particular division of investment banking basically focuses on doing in-depth research on an industry and in-depth research on a particular company. That's why you'll have a lot of these broking houses, issuing reports, telling about the market commentary, what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. And, these are the departments where typically you will find more like a CFA kind of a candidates going in. But, in all the three categories, although I have clubbed sales and research into one, so it loosely gets to four, but it's three categories broadly. You would typically find, MBA plus a CFA kind of a candidate. That's a sweet spot in terms of education qualification, or you would just get a CFA. Now, what I've seen is that, people typically chartered accountants, the fear that I receive from the sessions that I take in Chennai is that, people say that, these fields are not made for us. People say that you please go, you are made for audit and tax and that. So I tell them that, life is beyond audit and tax. I can tell you that there are, infinite, not infinite is not the right word, but there are many chartered accountants across the three verticals in investment banking. That's what I've described in the overall scheme of things. So the skill set, what you learn besides the auditing, which is basically more like really, disclosure focused, risk averse, going by the books. In investment banking is actually the opposite. So it's actually, you need to develop a salesy attitude. You need to be a sales guy. So essentially, if I'm a salesman of Colgate, I'll be selling those toothpastes in the market. Here as an investment banker, I'm actually selling a toothpaste, or maybe selling the product, which is called a company, essentially, right? Because I have to showcase a company, I have to package it. But in my packaging, it will be more like, a financial model. It will be more finance based, essentially. That's
Right.
where a chartered accountant would come in, who would have understood all those disclosures very well, who would understand all the footnotes and other things as well. So that's where, there is a slight differentiation in terms of skill set that you would see that is required, that obviously you're not taught in audit or you're not taught in corporate finance, because that's hardcore technical job. Here it becomes technical plus, technical plus sales job. Now,
Right.
when I move to private equity, which is the buy side or the investing world, now the difference here is that in all the three divisions that you see, audit, corporate finance, and investment banking, it is all advisory. So essentially, you are not putting your money. You're just client. If there is a success, it's up to the client. If there is a failure, it's up to the client. Now, when you come on to the investing side, it's basically you are doing a fiduciary duty, which means you're managing the money of pension funds across the world, and then you're putting that money into a company. So it is your responsibility. It is your money which is getting invested, essentially. So you have far more degree of responsibility on your head. You can't afford your decision to go wrong, because if your decision goes wrong, it will erode the capital of the retirement age group of people who are there in America, Canada, and developed markets, essentially. So that's the kind of risk that you carry, and there's a different set of mindset and there's a different set of skills. Now in investing, you get far more deeper into understanding the trends about an industry, far more deeper in terms of understanding the about the company, about the financial model, and some of these. So, but what I'm trying to say is that if let's say you acquire X skills in X, we say that in audit, you require, let's say, X plus Y. In investment banking, X plus Y plus Z. In private equity, it's basically all the gamut of skills that you've ever acquired in your life. You have to put all those skills together and then use it.
Right.
That there are very few people actually go there, and chartered accountants are quite discouraged. I don't know why, or why people, why aspiring C students get discouraged with this.
Right. So, like you mentioned, that CA students are often very afraid of getting into the investment banking and private equity sector. So, can you provide a landscape of different kind of opportunities that exist within the investment banking vertical?
So, if you remember, I was explaining you about the three broad verticals.
Right.
The M&A, private equity. Then you have sales and research. Then you have these equity capital market guys, essentially. So these are the three broad verticals. Skill set are very different. The ECM guys, so basically the people who are actually working for IPOs, QIPs, right issues, they're more like merchant banker. The skill set over there is basically licensing with SEBI, adhering to all the compliance that is required as per Companies Act, SEBI Act, getting that 1,000 page of prospectus into place. So that is the skill set that is required. because it includes all kind of skill set. There's a lot of other intermediates that actually get attached to a deal. They're lawyers, the big top law firms which get attached to the whole process and stuff. So coming back, you do have these front-end opportunities, I would say, which is with Indian iBanks. If I may name a couple of them, not recommending any of those, but just for the namesake, you have Edelweiss, you have JM Financials, you have Motilal, you have IDFC, you have Anand Rathi. In the foreign shops, you have CLSA, you have Nomura, you have JP Morgan, you have UBS. So these are all investment banks essentially. And now, a lot of chartered accountants get an opportunity to work with Morgan Stanley. But here what happens is that you do exactly the same work, but you do the back-end part of it. So essentially, the similar kind of work, what I've explained to you, will be done by the front-end people present in Europe and North America. And all the back-end work with respect to those kind of, deals will come to India. So that is another set of opportunity, and I've seen a lot of cases where people have actually gone to the back-end office of these iBanks, worked really hard, maintained a very strong repo, got an opportunity to move out of India, work in the front-end office of those iBank, and the front-end office, I think, is as like a dream come true kind of a situation because it's in London or it's in New York or Boston, essentially.
Okay. Are there also like different types of skill sets required? Is there any difference between the skill set of a person who is doing audit, corporate finance, investment banking, or private equity?
I think, so what happens is that, here I would like to start off by saying that, typically MBAs get onto the other side, basically investment banking and private equity, leave aside corporate finance and audit too for chartered accountants. I don't know, that's a soft line that is being drawn, and I don't know why, because I'm a chartered accountant and I've seen in all the 4 divisions, I think my degree has given me sufficient cushion to actually sail through any kind of problem that I've gone across for. So if you ask me in terms of technical knowledge, I don't think that understanding financial statement, because if you ask me, it's just 3 pages of financial statement: P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. That gives you all the answer. There's nothing more to it. Now, in terms of other skill set that you would require besides this, is obviously your interpersonal skills. That how you react with, how do you interact with, the management, promoters, and others in the management meeting. Try to gauge them, because what happens is that this is a deal business. This is interpersonal, stuff. And it's a matter where the huge amount of money is at stake. So a company which is giving you 50% stake, which means that the promoter is selling out 50% stake. So there's a huge money which is involved. So they really need to be comfortable with the partner who is stepping in. Because private equity is what you're partnering with, companies to give them capital so that they can grow faster. If they really grow at this rate, they would obviously not come for private equity money or go for any kind of money, essentially. So their interpersonal skills remains very important. Then your extensive reading and research, basically, because you can't be a shallow guy. Because if I'm giving you a consulting, and this country, our country rather, is basically full of people who can give a lot of advice at free of cost, essentially, because it doesn't cost anything, right? But now here in this business, you really need to do your homework really well. Try to validate your facts, do a lot of groundwork, do bottoms up analysis and a lot of things, and do all the data checking on your own, because you are putting your money. So if I have to, let's say, personally buy a car, then I have to actually go and see all the different brands. I have to see I have to do all the test drives and actually get to that decision. So exactly the same thought has to come from the institutional mindset when you're sitting with a company, so that actually you execute the same thing. So in audit, what you restrict yourself is, hey, look, this is auditing standards. Hey, look, this is accounting standards. Hey, look, this is Caro checklist. And I have to basically adhere to these things. So essentially you have formed a boundary within which you want to play your turf. Here, the more you move towards investment banking and private equity, more creativity in terms of skill set that you have to bring in.
Okay. So, like, what career tips or can you give our viewers regarding this investment banking sector? Since you mentioned that interpersonal skills play a very, important role, and how can one crack the interview process of these companies? So, essentially, what career tips can you give our viewers?
Sure. Well, I think so. One thing which I've realized, if you ask me personally, is that we typically don't pay attention to our own personal career. I don't know why people don't really focus on interviews, because interviews is actually about me. I'm selling myself to a company for a prospective opportunity which can increase my economic value personally. If I'm at, let's say, $100 of salary, if I'm appearing for an interview which can give me $150, so I'm bringing economic prosperity at my home.
Right.
Right? So what I'm trying to say here is that interview preparation, take it as the core job. You have to take it as a job. You have to take it as an assignment. You have to practice it. You know why do a lot of CS fail in such interviews? I can tell you I've given 80 interviews, and
Okay.
80 interviews means 160 rounds of interviews I've given while moving those ship. And most of them I got rejected. Few of them I liked it, but I rejected them. And there are certain opportunities which I really picked up because I really found it to be appropriate for me. But essentially, I went through the whole grill of interviews where some of them were insulting, some of them were complimenting, some even doubted my degree, some even said this, that. And there are different kind of people, different shades of a particular color that you would see in life. So what happens is that in MBA, this dry interview drill is a pretty common exercise. If you go, let's say, in some of the universities in US, over a breakfast, people, the students are asked to pair up together and take a mock interview. Now, you tell me, it's in chartered accountancy curriculum. Firstly, it's a distant learning course, so you don't get the opportunity to actually do these collaborative sessions together and get a very holistic output for everybody. So that's the first fundamental difference. I would say form a pair of form a group, and within group just do lot of dry interview runs. And I'm sure if you think that you are a really smart public talker, or we'll say you can talk really well, and if you're doing it for the first time, I'm sure you will flunk. How well you are mastered this particular language called English, but still you would not clear it, because once you have to describe yourself, your 20-30 years of experience in like less than 60 seconds, it's a really skillful job that one needs to do.
Right.
So I would say practice your interviews, take it as a first time, you take it as a job. Third, on the technicals, in you are taught about the concept of finance in a very limited fashion in the financial management course in CFIL. But what happens is
Right.
once you move towards corporate finance, once you move towards, let's say, private equity and investment banking and such and so on and so forth, what happens is that the complexity of those level of knowledge actually increases significantly. And what is expected in an interview when you are actually appearing, when you are like 1 year qualified, 2 year qualified, what they really want is that you should be thorough with the technical knowledge, because there's a lot of money which is getting involved, and you can't be making errors in your Excel spreadsheets. So your concepts around corporate finance, your concept around some of the definitions about, let's say, what is VAC, what is beta, what are some of these things, and understanding the practical aspects of it. This is very important. So 3 points I've said. The fourth one, which is the most important point in my view, is basically networking. I think networking has to be the core, not only just for interviews, just for everything, because after a point of time, audit is required by law. If there was no law, then you really need to network to get business.
Right.
Corporate finance, to an extent, when you're doing these valuation reports and all, there are certain RBI regulation which mandates you to get the valuation reports done. So you get certain job because of regulatory, provisions. But now the moment you move towards investment banking and buy side, which is investing, so you would definitely see that you have to hunt, you have to actually scout for your meal. You have to cook it yourself, you have to eat it, and then you would realize. That's why you would see the compensation levels are very different, because there you have to actually go out in the market and source for your own meal. You have to get business for the company, you have to get everything, because if there is no deal, then what you're going to work on essentially, if there is no company which has appointed you as a merchant banker for an IPO, then what are you going to work on? Where will you get your fees essentially? So these are, some of the important aspects, to be honest, which I just thought to throw some light where, students actually think, and this is the most important, not networking, the whole interview, how to do a prep for an interview. This is like the core thing. Please, if you want to stick it right on your wall, please just do that, because you are that's the only place where you're working for yourself. That's the only place where you're selling yourself. That's the only place where you are actually solving needs, you are actually satisfying your aspirational levels. Let me be as blunt and as honest that it can be.
Great. So thank you so much, Anuj, for sharing your journey with us and for this insightful CCI talk. I'm sure our viewers have gained a lot of knowledge from your career, and I'm sure they've also gained some knowledge on what career opportunities lie ahead of them in the investment banking and private equity sector. So thank you so much for giving us your valuable time.
My pleasure. No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.